Good evening. My name is Brittany Hayden, and today I'm going to be bringing you a proposal for Airmanship 201. So I'm just going to jump right into the introduction and a little bit about me. I'm from Tennessee. I lived there all of my life until I decided to join the Air Force, which took me all over the world, multiple different installations in the U.S. and then a couple of overseas assignments as well. I spent 13 years in the service. I just medically retired in January. Like I said, we've been all over the country, but we ended up at McChord Air Force Base in Washington. After that, and I retired, we moved to Oklahoma City for a job that I got for the Air Force, doing the same thing, but just not as active duty. So a little less stressful, but I still enjoy it. So I have a wonderful husband who I've been married to for almost 3 years. And together we have 2 sons. Braden is 17 and Germany is 15. So the organization that I'm going to be talking about today is the 627th Communication Squadron. They are located there at McChord Air Force Base. And then some of the contextual factors that we're going to be dealing with is we've seen an increased need for more communication, more motivation, and more direction with our newer airmen. So today's generation comes in, these young adults grew up with electronics at their fingertips. They don't know how to have conversations because they've spent their time texting and typing and all the fun things that come with the digital age. So this has caused an increased need for soft skills training. So the electronic dependence that has been developed leaves little room for building relationships, having conversations, and then learning those essential skills to be successful in a career, especially in a unit that deals primarily with customers. So these young airmen come in and they struggle a little bit to talk to the customers. They struggle answering the phones professionally, sending professional emails. Even sometimes they might have problems holding conversations with their peers or their supervisors and superiors. Additionally, we've noticed the rate of administrative disciplinary action for young airmen has increased. This is due to multiple things. One of them is failed PT tests, so fitness assessment tests. After COVID-19, everybody's on quarantine. And then we jump right back into it and start testing these airmen who haven't been doing very much for quite a while. And as you would expect, a lot of failures occurred. So we've got a lot of disciplinary action going on for that, just physical fitness as a whole. We've got failed dorm inspections. So these airmen, I like to compare them to college kids because they're about the same age. So they come in and it's their first time away from home, first time away from mom and dad, and some of them don't know how to take care of themselves. And so their dorms show that, and we've had multiple dorm inspection failures. Dereliction of duty is another one that we see. So this showing up late to work, not showing up to work, not being truthful about their locations and what's going on, where they're going. And then disrespect for superiors. So a lot of the disrespect for superiors that we see can be kind of boiled down to lack of communication or not knowing how to properly communicate. And then another one is missed credit card payments. And just because, again, this is their first time away from home and they're dealing with a pretty significant amount of money, but they don't know how to budget. They just don't understand their finances. So the Air Force basic training and their tech training is very effective for teaching these young people knowledge about the military and knowledge about their career field. But I think it fails to impart knowledge of like everyday life and these soft skills that these airmen are needing. So the organization's need is to lower the rates of airmen receiving administrative actions for less significant incidents that may have been resolved or prevented with a bit of professional development and training. So that's a little bit there. So we're going to jump into the program purpose. So the need, I just talked about that a little bit. So we need to lower these rates of airmen receiving administrative action. That's overall what our need is and what the program purpose is for. So the target audience is going to be these new airmen, ages 17. We don't see too many of those, but 17 to 26. This is going to be after they've completed basic training and technical training, and then the first term airman's course. And then, of course, we want them to in-process the unit. So some of the common characteristics that you're going to see are they're young adults, they're new to the military lifestyle, or at least active duty. Parents may have been in the military, but they're new to the active duty side of the things. It's probably their first time living on their own, and first time away from families and support systems. And then they're also learning a new environment, a new job, just everything around them is new, and they're having to manage and cope with that. So these characteristics are reflected throughout the program with course and learning objectives. Most of these participants have gone through an extreme adjustment with the military up until this point, and then life starts to become the new normal for them. So understanding where their views and ideologies come from is important in instructing and developing them to become airmen that we need them to be. Throughout this program, we're going to focus on the airmen and how to improve their work life and their outside life by giving them tools to succeed and avoid mistakes, failures, and also relieving a burden that they may have in not knowing what to expect. So the main topics of this program, Airmanship 201, is going to be life skills and soft skills. The program intends to teach young airmen life and soft skills that are essential in the Air Force, but they've yet to be taught or primarily focused on in their previous training. So some of these skills are financial responsibility, customer service etiquette, and soft skills, wellness and fitness, awards in the promotion system within the military or the Air Force specifically, educational benefits that are available to them, and then overall their career progression. So while the basics of the military are taught in basic training, and then their job is taught in tech school, some of these topics that we're going to discuss don't have a distinctive place for being instructed. So this program intends to fill in the gaps and prepare them for life at their first duty station in this unit, in the 627th Communication Squadron. So for the scalability, so determining the appropriateness for expanding this program to include other units or maybe even other bases across the Air Force is going to depend primarily on the program's success here at the 627th Communication Squadron. If the unit level, if we notice that it's successfully minimizing the administrative disciplinary action and increasing the productivity of the airmen and their supervisors, the whole chain of command involved in this administrative disciplinary action, then it could expand to other units on base. Other units may require different modules, but the curriculum can easily be adjusted to fit each unit's needs and each class of airmen's needs. So with that, we'll move on to the instructional design for the program. So the philosophy of teaching and learning that I've used to develop this is constructivism. So constructivism is the idea that students can create meaning and understanding through experience. So it's less of a single theory about learning and more of a collection of perspective, all of which share the common assumption that learning is how people make sense of their experience. An important restriction of education is that we have to acknowledge is that teachers cannot simply transmit knowledge to the students. The students have to be actively engaged and they have to want this knowledge in order for it to be successful. So constructivism places responsibility on both the teacher and the learner for knowledge transmission to occur. So in constructivism, the curriculum often places emphasis on big ideas and then expands to its parts. So students learn ideas and thoughts are valued and they're requested. Learning is interactive and builds upon the knowledge that the student already has. The instructors maintain a conversation with the students throughout the course. This helps the students construct their knowledge and to get their ideas flowing and get a better understanding of what's being taught to them. And then for constructivism, assessments usually include work, observations, different points of view, tests, but knowledge is dynamic and it changes with the student's experiences. So when using constructivism, a few components are included in lesson planning. Instructors should elicit prior knowledge, create cognitive dissonance, apply new knowledge with feedback, and reflect on learning. Constructivism was used to develop the learning and lesson plan in this program, exercises in role playing, and in the assessments. So each section begins with a recall of previously learned information, followed by interactive instruction. This includes discussions, exercises, role playing, but all in all, it's closed with an assessment of some sort to test the knowledge that they've learned. So for the structure of the program, it's broken down into days of training, and my face was on it the whole time that you could have been watching it, but it's broken into days of training. So we have day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and day 5. So it's a 5-day, 40-hour course. Each module has assignments and activities to complete that are better graded. Some of these activities may be completed as a group, but others are completed individually. These assignments will show the mastery of the topics that we're discussing. The modules do allow time to discuss what is already known about the topic, and then the material is presented, usually through like a PowerPoint presentation or a Prezi presentation, or some type of presentation is made with this new knowledge. Then we're going to apply the knowledge and reflect on what the students have learned. And then finally, there will be that mastery assessment. So at the cognitive and affective levels of learning, students will apply knowledge from multiple areas. So they'll apply knowledge from finances, customer service etiquette, wellness and fitness, the awards, an EPR system, educational benefits, and then career progression. They're going to recognize and correct behaviors that do not comply with Air Force standards, and they're going to be able to demonstrate the understanding of their chain of command. And then on the affective side, we want to make sure that they understand the impact that administrative disciplinary action has on their career, and that we are reviewing previously learned information with a better understanding. So the overall program outcome is that participants will not only understand the Air Force way of life, but they'll be able to identify these behaviors and thought patterns that could lead to administrative disciplinary action, because the program goal is to decrease administrative disciplinary action. So on top of this, participants will be able to implement strategies to maintain good order and discipline, and then increasing inclusivity within the squadron, because we're introducing them to their peers and we're introducing them to their superiors early on in their career, and we're giving this opportunity for inclusivity. So the primary instructional method, so this is going to be in-person discussion questions, instruction, role-playing, and exercises. So we're going to use Canvas simultaneously to display notes and lessons. This will also be a place where they can go back and review things and study if they need to. They're going to use Canvas to take assessments and tests. And then they're also going to use it for the review and application of knowledge. So the implementers that are going to be teaching this program are going to be the non-commissioned officers, preferably technical sergeants. We will take staff sergeants who are highly motivated from different sections throughout the squadron. This pulling them from different sections does ensure a breadth of experience, and it successfully shares a wealth of knowledge with the airmen that are a part of the unit. So by using the NCOs in the unit, the airmen will become more comfortable with their peers and with their superiors. And this enables them to have better relationships and to support that inclusivity that we want. So the first module is about managing finances. So, I was trying to highlight it, but we have it on here. So managing finances. So the learning outcome is demonstrate knowledge of budgeting and TSP management. And the learning objectives are going to be to build a personal budget for their current need, and then use knowledge learned to manage their TSP and explain the retirement plan that is set up for them. So there's a PowerPoint presentation that allows the implementer to present the material and keep the students engaged. Throughout the lesson, there are multiple opportunities for discussion and for the students to apply their own situations in life to the topic. For the assessment of student mastery on the topics, the students will need to build a budget and properly log on and explain their TSP account, and that's going to be those learning objectives. So one type of evaluation for meeting program outcomes occurs with the students. So the program content evaluations occur after every module. They're going to have surveys and questionnaires. After each module, the students will participate in a survey that will allow data collection for what the airmen have learned, what they've liked and disliked about the module, and then information that they found helpful from each course module. Concept mastery for participants will be assessed through assignments, discussions, surveys, and then tests. So if the concepts have been appropriately mastered, the students' discussion and scores should reflect this. So for accepting mastery, a passing score would be required, which is going to be above a 70% on the assessment. And then on the overall test and presentation of the material that was learned. So for any student that scores below this cutoff, there will be an attempt to retake the assessment after review has been completed with the implementer. So peers would also be expected to jump in and help the student out in areas which they may struggle. So successive implementers would be a rating of 4 stars or higher on an assessment that's 1 to 5 stars, with 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest. So the implementers are going to be assessed by the top 3 organizations. So this is where we have our master sergeants, senior master sergeants, and our chief. Below 4 stars means that the implementer most likely needs more practice or needs to become more familiar with the material. So to evaluate the effectiveness of the instructional methods, a survey and overall course scores will be reviewed. So if the instructional methods are effective, the scores and surveys will reflect this. And if they're not effective, the surveys and the scores will also reflect that. In the event that they're not effective, it will be best to reevaluate the program and address the instructional method to meet the current need. So then logistics. So logistical considerations for this program: students don't need to bring any material in other than maybe something they want to write on if that's what they wish to do. The training room has computer systems that are already set up and ready to use for programs like this. The students will be required to create a free Canvas account and log into the class before the start date. This allows for the implementers to identify any problems that may happen prior to the class start date, so they can get them resolved and they're not doing all that on the first day of class. So the classroom needs to be reserved ahead of time, but the setup process should take no more than 1 day. But this will ensure that all the students are registered, the class environment and Canvas is working appropriately, and that the location is set up and ready to go for the class. Okay, let's move on to the program implementation. I'll try to move my face. So for Airmanship 201, there's going to be a variance in who's responsible for designing, managing, and coordinating the training, while others actually conduct and evaluate it. The top 3 and senior non-commissioned officers will manage the program overall. It'll primarily be the first sergeant that's doing this. Program management includes data review, holding discussion groups with supervisors after the training, communicating with leadership, and program development. So the program manager, like I said, will be the first sergeant. They have access to files and information that's sensitive to other people, but is needed for capturing accurate data for the program. So for example, they'll be responsible for capturing the amount of paperwork that was issued or administrative action that was issued prior to the program and then after the program. And so we can compare that quantitative data to see if we're being successful or not. Budgeting. So We don't need a budget, really. The biggest thing that we do is we're going to offer breakfast. And so I do have a breakdown in my paper of the budget for the breakfast. And so this money will come from our booster club and the top 3 organization. And then for program evaluation, we've talked about that and touched on that a little bit already. Here's an example of the assessment of student mastery. So for that first module of finances, when they have completed their assessments, we'll go through and grade them. So of course we want them to be at full participation, able to fully explain, documented and was reasonable for their budget. All income was included for their budget, and then documented all unreasonable expenses, again for their budget. And then the program dates, so we have them broken down over here. So the program goes for 5 days, and then the week following there will be the assessment survey data collection, and then twice a year we'll have the focus groups for supervisors, in which we sit down with the supervisors and discuss the good and the bad, and what they've seen from the airmen that have taken the course. And then, so program rollout. So for internal marketing, I'm going to collaborate with the chief and first sergeant. The 3 of us will be responsible for updating and sharing the program's progress, successes, and failures. After I'm no longer there, another person will need to volunteer to stay active with the program and work directly with the first sergeant. The first sergeant will put together the data and hold the discussions with the commander to receive the official approval, and then continuously interact with her to identify the data and present her the benefits of the program and how it's going. So for the champions, one set of champions that we need is the top 3 organization. So by pitching this program to them and showing the potential for a decrease in paperwork, we're hoping that we can get their full support with this. With the support from the top 3, the program will be discussed and pushed down from multiple different levels. And some of the key talking points we're going to make sure that the stakeholders and champions understand is the predicted decrease in disciplinary action, the predicted increase in productivity of the airmen and the supervisors. This gives an opportunity for our NCOs to practice giving briefings, trainings, and public speaking. And it's also an opportunity for our NCOs to get involved with presenting professional development. So another set of champions is going to be our first line supervisors and the peers of the new airmen. So these are the people that will be necessary to spread the good word and help newer airmen to be motivated to attend and participate. While it is a mandated program, there's still a need to be engaged and hopefully excitement for attendance. It's usually much easier to instruct a class that has a desire to be there over a class of people who are disgruntled about having to attend. So for the official approval, it will be the commander. She will decide if it's sufficient to meet the current needs, and she'll also be the one to decide if the program continues after the first year. External marketing. Marketing in general is primarily going to come from leadership pushing down the information. The program is marketed to the airmen as a professional development opportunity. With this type of marketing, the hope is that the airmen see it as an opportunity instead of a forced topic. And then here's an example of the flyer for the airmen. And then for the return on investment demonstration, so we're going to have quantitative and qualitative data, all from these surveys and data collection. The return of investment will be demonstrated by the results that are generated through the evaluations for the program. These will be sent out in emails and then briefed at commanders' calls and even advertised on flyers throughout the squadron. So with all that, some key factors for success is going to be those champions and just the marketing that we do to ensure that it's marketed as an opportunity and not as a forced course. So some key outcomes and goals, we want to make sure we decrease administrative disciplinary action for young airmen while increasing productivity and inclusivity within the squadron. And we want to be able to identify and correct behaviors that do not comply with the Air Force standards. So that is my program overarching, in a quick nutshell. So I look forward to talking to you next week, and I am prepared for your questions. Thank you. Good night.